Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Chats with Kat on the Voice of Adoptees podcast. I am your host, Kat, and I hope everyone is having a great week so far. Don't forget to grab your coffee or a preferred beverage, maybe some tea, and settle in. I'm currently here with Andrew, and he's really excited to share his story. So, Andrew, briefly tell us who you are, introduce us to yourself, and let everyone who's listening get to know you a little bit.
All right. Well, I am Andrew Greenblatt. I live in Maple Grove, Minnesota. I was adopted from Kaliningrad, Russia in 1997. I was born there in 1996, and I've lived here ever since. I've grown up here with a great family, great opportunity, and I am very grateful for where I am today.
Okay, so a fellow Russian adoptee, just like myself and a few others who are also on this podcast, we try to interview as many adoptees from all over the world as possible. So just let's talk about your adoption story. Tell me about it, wherever you want to start from.
Okay, so my adoption story is my both of my birth parents. My birth mother she worked in the kindergarten with kids, is from what my brother told me. I tried to find out more about her life, but he was also very young and he could only give me so much information about her. And my birth father was a fireman in Kaliningrad. Honestly, I don't know much more about him. From what I know, they weren't married at the time I was born, but I have two biological brothers, same mother, and the oldest brother he's a half brother from a different father, and we don't communicate much, but we do talk over the social media site VK, and that's actually how I found out. Years ago, I found out when I began my search, all the information I had been looking for, and it was actually incredible. It happened within a month, honestly, I think is what it was. I was just coming out of high school in 2014. I was a senior. I was 18 years old. And up to that point, I had really never known anything about my story, anything, where I came from, who I came from. And as a kid growing up, I never really thought much about it because it just wasn't anything really people ever asked me about. So my senior year of high school, I started getting interested. I wanted to find out the information. I wanted the facts. So I began my search. So I went on Facebook and I posted a status asking for any help in my search, for any Russian people in my community that could reach out to me and, get me started on this. Where can I begin? And so I started with posting a status, and then I started posting I found a Russian adoption group on Facebook, and I joined that. And then I posted what I was looking for. I asked for help and just gave it a shot, not thinking, I didn't think anything would ever come from it, because what are the chances it would? So within about probably a day or two, there was a friend of mine on Facebook, a Russian guy that lived just a couple cities over from me. And he messaged me and he goes, "Hi, I understand you're interested in finding, your biological family, your story. I'd like to help you out." And I'm thinking, this can't be real. I mean, what are the odds this could happen within a couple of days of even just asking? So I start talking to this guy we start messaging each other, and he's asking me all these questions. I don't remember what the questions were. I mean, this was 2015 at this point. So he asked me to send him, what information I have on my, any documents that I had from my adoption that could help me out. So I send him, what I have, and he replies, "Okay, I'm going to forward this to somebody living in Belarus, a friend of his or something." And I said, "Okay, that's fine." Mm-hmm. And I'm still at the point where, all right, I'm not sure if anything will come from this. But nobody was asking for, nobody was asking for money for me to pay them for help or anything. So I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot.
Right.
So
Right.
within probably a week, if I remember correctly, it wasn't very long. It was about a week or so. And he gets back to me. He messaged me on Facebook and he goes, I think I found your brother. And I'm going,
Mm-hmm.
that, all right, what can you give me here? And he tells me, he sends me a screenshot of a profile of this guy named Oleg Kareev living in Kaliningrad.
Right.
And he goes, I want you to send this guy a message. And I want you to, he's expecting your message. Someone told him that you were what your search was. So I sent Oleg a message on VK a couple days later. And I said, hi, I think you may be my biological brother. I'm Andrew Sergey. I was told from a friend of mine to send you a message. And Oleg replies within a day or so. And he's just
Right.
excited. I mean, his message is with exclamation points, and he goes, wow, are you serious? Is this really happening? And I'm still skeptical.
Right.
I don't want to get too excited about something that might not be real. So I proceed with caution, and I go, and then him and me start talking, and I sent him the information that I had, on the information of my biological parents on the documents that I had. And he said,
Right.
well, I have those same documents. We have the same, or our parents have the same names, same city, same addresses. And I'm like,
Right. So you just know.
right. And I mean, this is all within, like I said, this isn't even a full month of this happening. This is like 2 weeks in. So him and me start talking, and we're trying to, like, we're comparing our information with each other just to make sure we have it all right. And sure enough, it ended up being all on the dot. I mean, so at this point, I wasn't as skeptical anymore. I'm like, okay, this is seeming a lot more real, and I started to get more excited about it. So then I asked him. I said, "Is it all right if I ask you, all these questions I have, because at this point you're the only living relative that I know of." And he said, "Sure." And so I started firing off. I mean, through years, I was firing off questions to him, like asking him for photos. What can he tell me about the family that we had over there? And he was, I mean, it was just incredible because he was so open with telling me everything that I had been interested in. And he told me what he knew. If he didn't know an answer to one of my questions, he would just tell me. But he would always let me know that he would try to find the answer, which was amazing. So we started talking about, I was telling him about my life, how I grew up, and everything has been great for me. I am very grateful for everything that I've, been through at this point and how I've ended up. And I would ask him about how his life is. And his life was a little, it definitely was not as structured as mine was.
Right.
He, at the time that I was messaging him back in 2015, 2016, at this point, I believe he was living with a grandmother. I don't know if it was a mom on the mom or dad's side, but the family was very diminished at this point. I mean, there wasn't many of them left. And he told me, when I asked him if our birth parents were still alive, he said, no, our mother died, and it was January of 2005 from alcohol poisoning. And then I asked him about my dad, and he didn't know. Honestly, I don't think he really didn't know anything about him besides that he was a fireman.
So there's a lot to just before you continue. There's a lot to unpack in this first part of your story. one of the first things you said was that you were grateful for everything, and it's kind of like this notion that, like many other adoptees, you always wondered who your family is. Where did you come from? You wanted to know more about your family. Did I have siblings? Are they still alive? Sort of thing. And I feel, gathering from what you were saying, I feel like I can make a judgment where if you could visit them, you would, sort of thing.
Yes.
You would like to, potentially meet them and get to know them more, things like that. What I find interesting is you're not the only person who has gone onto Facebook or been approached by people through Facebook about helping them find their family. That's how it happened for me as well,
Sure.
through the Russian adoptees group, which is very, very interesting. For me, it was the same sort of thing. So when you express, like, I had a huge, I was like, is this real? Like, I think this is a scam.
Right.
I don't know if this is real. Maybe I shouldn't be giving them my
Yeah.
information, right? For me, I feel fortunate because it was a lot quicker that I was able to get information. It was like, 1, 2, 3, here's your biological brother. And I was like, oh, so I was able to, just like you did, you reached out to them on VK. What was running through your head when you were trying to reach out to your biological brother on VK? What was running through your head as you were typing the message to him?
I mean, the first message I was sending at that point, I was still a little like, I was skeptical because I was like, this could be real, but it could not be. The fact that it all happened so quickly is what really made
Right.
me. Now, I wanted to believe it, but I just couldn't at this point, because it was, I mean, this was like 2 weeks after I even had interest in beginning my search. But I figured, if this is the real deal, this is the time that I'm going to find out about it. So I was excited. I just wanted to give it a shot, and it was the right move to do.
So I feel like you took this chance based out of kind of curiosity and obviously a hope that there would be some sort of information being brought back to you that was credible. But you started it based off of curiosity. Is this,
Yeah.
is this something that could happen for me, sort of thing? Can this
Right.
person really locate my family, my biological family? Can I take a chance on them, sort of thing?
Exactly.
Me, I feel very, very happy when those who are separated from their families find them again. And I talk about a little bit about what that must have been like when you really realized that, yep, this is 100% beyond a shadow of a doubt my family, my real family over in Russia, the family that I thought I lost. What was that like?
It was surreal, honestly. I mean, growing up, I had always been curious about it as a kid, but I just had nowhere to, I had no way to access anything. I didn't know where to begin. And my parents now, they were always supportive of me. I mean, they were willing to answer questions, but they didn't know it. They knew less than I did, honestly. I mean, they just, I tried to ask, and I even
Because of the
tried.
closed door. Yeah.
Yeah. At one point, I remember after I began my search a couple months in, before I knew of that my birth parents had passed away at this point, I typed out a long, like, greeting letter that I wanted to send over to Russia to my birth mother. And
Right.
because I had the address of her last known, where she lived. But then shortly after, actually before the letter was sent, I did find out that they weren't living anymore. So it really wasn't like an emotional thing for me. It was more so, I don't want to say I expected it, but I didn't have high hopes that anything would come from it. So I found out that they had passed away, and I wasn't sad, but I just wanted to know more. And like I said, I mean, I was just kept asking questions to my brother, and he was always very helpful about answering. I mean, he told me the reasons that they weren't living anymore. He told me their backgrounds, what they did, what kind of people they were. And they were, from what he told me, they lived modestly. I mean, they were good people, but coming up, growing up or living in Russia in the 90s was not good for anyone.
Right.
And from what my brother told me, it was just, they struggled. And so they could only, he could only tell me so much.
Right. So even though he was young, still, I assume this is an older brother, right? He's older than you?
Yes, he's 3 years older than me.
Okay. So even though he was so young, I also feel like there's kind of like a protective layer where maybe he doesn't want to tell you because he wants to protect you from the awful truth of what it was like. And
That
he
could
may
be.
also just not remember.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, him and since he was so young, I mean, he was still a child too, growing up through all this. And I was just appreciative of the fact that he was able to give me any information that he could, and he always had. So I was never upset about not being able to find out anything because there was already so much that I was learning. So it's like, if I don't find out something, it's almost so minimal.
Right. No, I totally understand. It's almost like any ounce of information is really good. It's very important, even if you find out one little piece of information. So I definitely understand firsthand how that feels. So growing up, let's take it back for a second. Growing up in the States, you were saying that your adoption story is something that people never really asked you. Now, when I interview other people, other adoptees, and myself, that's not necessarily the case. A lot of the cases is more that people, I mean, maybe it's because we proclaim we're adopted, or sometimes it's more like you just know that a person is adopted because people are sometimes very shallow and they just look and they say, oh, well, that person is clearly not related.
Right.
Why do you think there was no sort of curiosity for you? Is it, sometimes people are very proud of the fact that they're adopted, so they mention it. I gather you were maybe more of like a private individual, more of a private type of person. You kind of kept to yourself.
Yes. So, I mean, growing up, I was a very shy child. And I don't know, it's just never really something that floated across my brain to start coming out and talking about because I didn't really understand a lot of it myself. And and there were a few kids. It's hard to really remember, but I do remember specific times as a child of, kids are cruel. So there would be kids, that would always make fun of being adopted. And I mean, every adoptee has, at least a lot of them have probably gone through that similar thing. So it really made me build a wall around that. And I think that's what really kind of kept, it's what made it want me to keep it to myself more, because I didn't want to start, talking about something to somebody who just either didn't care, didn't understand, because I didn't even understand myself. So the conversation probably wouldn't have gone too far anyway. But
keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I just built the guard up over time and broke it down eventually.
I think that's something that happens through life, right? That's one of the processes that you kind of go through. You go through things that make you build up walls, and then you realize that you need to take down those walls in order to move forward, sort of thing.
Absolutely.
It's really just how we learn, we grow, and it's how we live, like really live and grow wiser through life. So continuing on with your adoption story, with you have found your brother, he is telling you about a family. Have you made plans to go back, or have you implemented, your heritage, like your Russian heritage, into your current life? Because now you have your brother, and do you talk to him? Like, how often do you talk with him? So go into about what life is like for you right now, or just since you found your brother, and how that's changed your life.
Oh yeah, I mean, I mean, in some words to say, it's kind of been like a dream come true, because so many people haven't been able to have that
Right.
connection, or they haven't been able to get as nearly as much of the information that I've been able to get. And yeah, me and my brother, we still talk pretty, not as consistently as we used to, because
Mhm.
the way the with the war in Ukraine going on over there,
Right.
I think he's been distracted and kind of doing his own thing. And so we haven't really been talking as much. But
Mm.
throughout the last couple of years, when we've been having, and I've been asking questions back and forth and getting to know him a lot more, he he has not had the greatest life. He's had a good life so far, from what he's told me and from what I know of him.
Mm.
He's worked I feel like every time I probably talk to him, every so couple months at this point, he seems to always have a new job. So he must be working like odd jobs, because every time I ask him, what he's doing these days, he'll tell me, 1 month he'll tell me he's doing warehouse work. The next he's working on, in a shipping yard, or, it's just always different. So and I know he's lived with a couple relatives, like a grandmother, and then there was an uncle at one point. But from what he's told me, I think there's probably only less than 5 biological family members left, honestly. I mean, they've all just, throughout the years,
Mm.
diminished. So he's really
Right.
kind of he's my last connection to what family is over there.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, it's really put me at peace, honestly, having that
I was gonna say.
connection and being able to find out everything with him. And it's incredible, honestly.
So you touched on something I was going to ask, where it's like, do you feel that usually when you find your family, it brings a sense of peace, a sense of closure, sort of thing. Do you feel that finding your biological brother and chatting with him the amount of times that you do brings you closer, not just to him, but to the rest of your family? I don't know if that makes, I'm not sure if that
Yes.
makes sense. For me, for example, for me, when I found my biological brother, every ounce of blood did this thing where it's like I was on fire. I just knew that this person was my brother. You just know, it's like a gut
Sure.
reaction. And every time I talk to him, I feel that same thing where it's like, this is my brother, this is my family. It's almost like an extra sense of loyalty. And having found your brother, does it change your mentality about your life and how you're currently living it in the States at all?
Yes, I would say it just makes me appreciate how my life ended up. Not to sound
Hmm.
bad in any way towards his life, but it's just that there's a huge difference,
Right.
between him and me now. And I mean, like, when I've told him, how I grew up, and, everything that I've been
Hmm.
through all these years, and it's all been excellent for me, and he's happy to hear that. And that's what really, I think, strengthens that bond we have, is we're able to talk about those things, and we're able to appreciate how we both grew up in different worlds, honestly, and we're learning about each other. And it's just, like I said earlier, it's really a surreal feeling.
So how is the language barrier? Does he speak a little bit of English? Do you speak Russian? Like how did that work out?
Um,
I mean, I assume for
well,
text it's Google Translate, but how else?
yeah, no, he does not speak any English, and we've never had
Phone
any
call.
voice calls or anything. But it's always been over chat. And I mean, I use Google Translate most of the time, just because I can't read Russian. I can speak a little bit of it, but I'm not fluent by any
Right.
means. I'm learning. But since I've been talking to him, he's been learning English. So
Right.
we're able to type out messages to each other in English and understand them fine. I mean, it's still a little broken here and there, when he's trying to say something, but for
Right.
the most part, it's actually been very, very easygoing, and a lot of it's, I think to Google Translate as well. Otherwise, it just wouldn't be possible to have any conversations.
Right. That's like me and my biological brother. We use broken English, a little bit of Russian. I try every so often, but he's just like, it's fine. I speak English a little. I'm like,
Right.
okay, this is good. This is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, how can you, like, after having gone through all of this, how can you say this has changed you as a person, as a whole?
I'd say it's just really put a great perspective on how far I've, been able to come because of the opportunity I had of being adopted.
Mm.
And I'm just, I'm not upset at all by any of the, negative answers that I've gotten from him about, our family or any of that. It's really just opened my eyes to, and it's really brought me out of my shell, I think, from speaking on my adoption. It really helps out knowing that I have that connection to him where I can, I can just literally open my phone up, send him a message, a video, a picture, whatever, and he's always eager to respond. A couple years ago, I actually sent him a watch for Christmas, and he received it, and he sent me a picture wearing it, so that was really cool.
Mm. So,
But it is.
has oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No. I wasn't sure if you're going to finish your thought, but for me, I guess I'm trying to I look at the bigger picture, right? Where I'm used to interviewing people who really always wanted to know about their family, really were unhappy, not happy with their adoptive situation. It's very rare that I come across individuals such as yourself where because you're not the only one I've interviewed, and I've always been like, wow, like I have a lot of respect, because if so many other people, so many other adoptees could see this and kind of look at life this way, where just I don't necessarily see it as I was taken. I see it as I have been given an opportunity in my life to be able to grow myself or progress forward, where other people don't necessarily see it that way. What advice do you have for people who feel stuck in not knowing anything about their families? They feel very down, and they feel like giving in, because even though you didn't necessarily know about your family, you didn't give in. You didn't really let it bother you. You were kind of, I feel like you just had this mentality where it's like, this is just life. This is the way life goes sometimes, and I'm okay with it. And it's a very rare mentality to see. So what is your advice for others to kind of get to that mentality? Because it's very impressive.
Thank you. My advice for others is don't give up your search. If it's something that you truly want to find out about, if you are so curious it keeps you up at night, do it. Go on Facebook. And I tell people this, that are in the adoption group. I tell them, if you're interested in looking out, finding out all this information, go on these certain groups that I went on, and I'll show them and ask for help. And there are plenty of people out there that are so willing to help people out, especially in this day and age with all the technology, with all the access people have.
Right.
Just don't be scared. I mean, if you need help, always reach out to me, to anyone that is willing or able to help you out, because you got to start somewhere. Doesn't matter how small it is. If it's just, a status, a post, a message, whatever it is, a call, the answers are out there. And honestly, you're the only one stopping yourself from finding them. Now, I know I've heard so many stories throughout the years of other adoptees wanting to begin their search, and their not their biological, their current parents, their adoptive parents, they are not as willing to help
supportive.
out their kids as mine were, which is sad. It is, but everyone has their reasons, that's what it is. But don't give up. There's always a way to begin your search, no matter how
Right.
small it is. It's possible. And my situation is quite different from a lot of them that I've heard of, because a lot of people have paid, private investigators, and they've hired people to
Mm.
seek out this information. And a lot of the times it comes up with nothing, or it comes up with just the most minimal information. And I can understand how that would be discouraging, but at the same time, it's like, all right, you got that. You got up to this point. You got, as little as you
Right.
have. Work with that. Keep reaching out. Search the internet. Go on, search the names of, what family you have, what addresses you have. They're,
Right.
like I said earlier, with all the social media and technology, anything is possible.
I agree with that. And I mean, for me, so just as an example, I had been looking for my family since I was, oh my God, like really, 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 really young. And especially when I was able to get a hold of technology like a computer, I definitely researched. I tried to search it in Facebook, So I think for those who are looking, it's also important to know that Russia, if you're looking for your Russian family, they don't have Facebook. They have something called vk.com. That's different. But
Yep.
also, something that happened to me was I remember searching once I found out about VK. This was before this person had found it, had found my brother way before. I actually found someone with the same name, and he was younger. I remembered that I had an older brother. So even though like I was able to find through social media the last name, it doesn't necessarily mean that he was related to to me. So I guess I'm saying that because I feel like you also know from experience that it's important, like you said, to not give up. Even though that may be the case, it doesn't mean that you won't find the person that you're looking for necessarily. Maybe this person also knows. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're like related. I don't know. I was very fortunate where I was able to find my brother, and as were you. But for just people who are trying to research and do come across that, I'm not sure. I haven't had anyone say that yet, but it happened to me. So I'm just going to mention it here. Just in case that happens, that, like Andrew says, that doesn't mean that you give up. We carry on no matter what. We keep moving forward.
Exactly.
So, how do you feel that adoption overall has impacted your your growth, just as a person, as a whole, like being adopted?
I think it's really shaped me into a very independent person, and it definitely gives me a hell of a backstory. I'll tell you that.
Right.
'Cause like I said, I mean, when I was growing up, I didn't talk about it at all. So when after I found out all the information that I've been looking for over these last many years, it has really, it's brought light to my eyes in so many words. And it's just
Okay.
made me feel accomplished, I'd say, because I started out with not knowing anything, and
Mm-hmm.
now I just about know everything that there is to know. And it's just wild how in just a couple
Right.
years it's really all out there now. And I mean, I'm thrilled about it. I'm not upset in any way, and I I hope that
Mm-hmm.
any other adoptee can have the same situation for that I had, and they're able to find out any information they can. And I would love to go back to visit, but like I
Mm-hmm.
said, it's rough over there right now, and it's
Probably not the best time.
right, and it's a very expensive process, and
Right.
renewing passports and citizenship and all that. So there's a lot
It
of
is.
hoops
Yeah.
to jump through, but I definitely
Right.
plan on doing it at some point.
Oh yeah. I feel like I mean, that's the thing is not every child who is adopted that finds their family wants to go and visit or even wants to they're like, cool, I have this information. I don't want to know about it. Some people kind of
Right.
just put that in the past and they keep it there.
Sure.
For me, I don't think there's anything wrong with just knowing. And then once you find out, if you want to put it in the past, that's fine. I think it's
Exactly.
good to just know, but not everyone wants to know, and that's also, that's also okay. So,
Sure. I mean, everyone's different.
right, everyone's journey is very different.
Exactly.
So growing up, I guess like I'm asking because I know you said you were more of a quieter child, and I get that. Naturally, bullying is something that you've been through, right?
Yes.
Did that make you want to close off even more? Did that make you want to close off from your adopted family, or how did that impact you just around other people? Sometimes adoptees feel that there's like, I guess what I'm saying is like, I'm saying it in the sense that like adoptees can feel like there's almost like a set of issues that comes with being adopted, right?
Sure.
I'm just wondering where it's like, do you feel like you've had these sort of set of issues? Do you feel like being adopted has really impacted the way that you communicated with people, or it's made you distrust your adoptive family, or anything like that? Did you question yourself a lot? These sorts of things.
Sure. I never distrusted myself, but I completely understand. Like I said, I mean, yeah, I was picked on for it, so I built a wall up over time, but I never let it discourage me. I held it in for a while, but I never let it discourage me. And I was just sitting in high school one day. I was on the computer, my senior year of high school, and I said, you know what? I don't want to be shy about this anymore. I want to start bringing it out. This is a piece of my life, my history, and
Right.
I want people to know about it. And it really over years it transformed how people's responses are, because now when I tell people I'm adopted, they're just eager to know about it. They want to hear the story, and I'm always willing to tell it. I'm always willing to answer questions. But yeah, being a little kid, I mean, kids are just, they don't understand. They just want to pick on you and make fun of you for if you're different in any way. But I not yeah, I opened up one day. I just decided this is me, and I wanted people to know.
I love that. Sometimes adoptees can feel like they can't talk about it. They don't feel
Or,
comfortable sharing their story. Again, I'm really happy that you eventually got there. You got to that point where
yes,
you want to share your story. You want people to know um, how you feel, what you've been through, and how it's made you the person that you are today.
yes.
So I know that you do welding, and I'm trying to make like this corny little joke, but it's not really coming together. But I was gonna say, do you feel like your life and your brother's life in Russia are like welded together? But that's a bad joke.
That's creative.
That's a bad joke. I tried. I tried.
You
I
did
guess
try.
it's
I'll
more
give you
like,
that.
do you feel like a deeper connection overseas? Do you feel connected to him even though you're so far away? Even when you're.
That's a good question. Yes and
Or is it
no.
like you just go about your day sort of thing? Yeah.
Right. That's more so of it. I mean, there is definitely a connection, but it's not strong, just because we've never truly known each other. We didn't know about each other for so many years, and it's like, yes, we know we're related and we know we share the same blood and all that, and we get along
Right.
fine and everything's great in that aspect, but we're connected on a very thin level, I'd say, and I don't think that has really discouraged me at all. I think I'm just appreciative for the fact, that he's willing to talk to me and he's willing to answer the questions I have, and he takes interest in my
Right.
life and I take interest in his, even though, some parts of his life have been less fortunate, but you can't think of it that way. You got to think of it in the best way possible.
I like that. Um,
Yeah.
I'm glad you understood what I meant. I was going to bring up the situation where once I finally did see my biological brother and my mother, I felt way closer to my biological brother than I did my mom. Where I'm like that, my mom, my my biological mother is the woman who gave birth to me, but she is not my mother.
Yes,
It was a very big like distance. And I feel like that's kind
absolutely.
of what I feel like that's what you're conveying. Where, for
Absolutely.
me, I think about my biological brother a lot. I think about him all the time. How's he doing? Is he okay? And we have a deeper relationship. Where I feel like for you and your brother, it's more like my relationship with my biological mother, which is
Yes,
that's okay. So I guess I guess I'm just trying to say for those who maybe feel that way when you do meet up with your family, it's okay. It is normal. Andrew has experienced that as well, and it's nothing to be worried about or upset about because it can happen. And I think what Andrew's trying to say is like the bond between you, just knowing that you found each other is really important. What do you think?
exactly. Yes,
Okay,
I agree with that. It is very important, and it just has made me appreciate, my adoption all that much more.
good. So I'm not sure if there's anything else that you really would like to add with your story. If you want to keep going or if you want to finish it off, I guess like one question would be, which I feel like we've touched on, is kind of like what is for you, what was the lesson that you've taken away from your whole experience?
The lesson that I've taken away, the main lesson, don't give up. Just keep going, keep
Right.
searching, find that information, reach out to people that, are in a similar situation to you. Like I said, go on Facebook. There's a Russian adoption group. Thousands of people are in it. So
Mhm.
many are willing to help. If you want to start, if you're serious about wanting to start, your journey on finding all this, don't be scared because you never know what you may or may not find out.
True. I love that. So, and with that, I would like to thank you all for joining me on this episode of Chats with Kat. A very special thank you to Andrew, our very special guest. Stay tuned for another episode of Chats with Kat every other Wednesday on the Voice of Adoptee podcast. And always remember, someone somewhere is thinking of you. You are not alone.